No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Because
clearly when I started off,
we were just literally arguing about like topics and who has like how we want to have conversations and if they're planned or not planned and like riding along, and then we got like pissed at each other. So then like, what do you want to talk about or what? What's on your heart right now?
I want to talk about sports.
Ooh, that's oh no, like that's not going down.
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
What's on your heart right now?
What's on my heart right now is I'm so happy with myself that I've cut down on how much alcohol I drink, and that I can sit through a podcast or a creative session and only drink abo tea.
Yeah, good for you. You've been doing a lot of changes recently. Health, mental health, mind, body stuff.
Yeah.
I like to think I do a lot of stuff, but I don't know. I'm in touch with myself, I think. And I am an herbal tea drinker for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell by the number of cabins you have with abo tea.
Yeah.
What's your favorite flavor?
That's hard. I don't know. It's like a mood thing. You get the Earl Grey, the chamomile, the mints,
Okay.
You're just really exciting me with all this tea talk. So anyways, cheers.
Cheers.
Tea time on the podcast.
So right now the energy is weird because we've just spent about 10 minutes arguing about podcast topics and what everybody wants to talk about.
We always talk about that as a couple we recover from fights really well, and we're gonna live this out with you right now. I'm also feeling very overheated. I don't know if it's like the lights or hot flashes.
Good. I'm not turning on a fan for you.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to mess up the sound for you guys, but yeah, we're pushing through. And
yeah. So, like I said, we have just been arguing about what topics we want to talk about. So, it's kind of strange arguing with someone you care about, Rugemi. And I think the older I grow, the more I realize that. Now, let me first give some context for this. So, most men let their wives win, right?
Yeah, and I really wish you would adopt.
I'm not that guy. I'm
philosophy.
not that guy because I
even though I'm generally right, which is the crazy thing.
And still so many men would agree with that, not because they agree with what you're saying, but because it's the thing that men have been taught to do now, because you're supposed to be this voiceless idiot, like this cucumber always agrees with the wife, and she's right, and you're wise not to argue.
But historically, the woman's the one who's just supposed to
be
shut
right.
their mouth. No, historically, the woman's just like has no opinion and no say.
Yeah, I know that, and I'm well aware of that. But now the reverse of that has been most of these better men, or the reverse of that of even showing a little bit of your masculinity and you being human and having reactions to things is considered unwise because it upsets most people. So there's this quote that I read somewhere. I don't remember if it was a quote or I've listened to something. And they were talking about how most men live lives of desperation, a quiet desperation of sorts.
So sad.
And it is because I think I read it somewhere, or I don't remember how this came to me, but a guy was growing old and he was living this life of like quiet desperation.
You Googled women are mean.
No. That wasn't it. That's not how I arrived at it, because so let me first finish the thought. So the thought becomes that this man lived his whole life until he was like in his dying days, like 80, 90, And his biggest regret in life was like he wished he had fought for himself and the things that he wanted more.
With his wife or just in life?
With his wife, basically. Because he felt like he allowed her to always take away from him. You get me? Just
Guys,
because you hope
I don't
for
know
peace.
if this is a story or this is someone just trying to tell me
This is real. This is real. This is real. And it's a thing that we're seeing so much in our community, because so the community before our fathers' ages, or even our fathers' ages, the ones who went to school and loved fair communities and, it should be this egalitarian, equal world, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the stand-up men that we applaud nowadays, right?
Yes.
But then it has also bred another society where to be a good husband, you should be muzzled and not voice any. You should just be basically some empty, stupid potato on. In order to be a good husband, don't argue. Like, you don't say, I don't like that.
That's
you
like
don't say, it should be what your wife likes and the topics she wants to talk about.
Yeah, that's the joke. Like, if you're getting married and you have an engagement party or you have or someone's giving wisdom, it's like, your wife is right. Always agree with her. Like, happy life, happy wife.
Yeah. See, things like that.
Yeah.
Happy life, happy wife. But happy wife. Happy wife, happy life. But so is sad husband. It's a mad existence, right? It is. But
here's
you agree with me on that.
I see that if you lean towards the extreme in a world where it's almost globally a patriarchal society, so we have to lean to the extreme to end up in the middle.
Yeah, but the thing is, how long do we have to lean on the extreme till we come back to where it's supposed to be the balance that makes sense? Because like everything in life, it's the balance. It's the middle. Always where you meet each other in the middle. Remember your grandpa said it's a 50-50 proposition?
Yeah, but what's
the other part? An 80-20.
Yes.
You get me? It's not an 80-20.
It's 50-50. And each person gives 150% or 110%. The point was you have to give more than 100.
You see, you still have, even a statement which is as fair as that, you have to qualify it with some stupidity at the end of the day. And stupidity is not the right word, but it has to be qualified with some illogical, romanticized position where still the man ends up in the compromised position. So it's a 50-50 proposition, but then again, what? Complete it for everybody.
But each partner has to give 110%.
That's not good math.
The point is you need to give more than just your full. You have to give an extra bonus on top of effort. It's not supposed to be math.
Yeah, it's supposed to be math.
Here's the thing. I'm just not going to feel bad for, like, we get into these conversations all the time. And like, because globally men are still like
no. This is when now you're beginning to bait it against where the harsh realities of the world that we've been lived in. This is not that argument.
Why not?
This argument is about, because we're going to get into that argument again. You get me? It's not even an argument, it's a debate. Mm-hmm. I don't like calling things arguments, actually. That's wrong. We need to get into this debate where we heap all of the evils that have been done in the future, and then this one moment hinges on it, and we fail to see of the past. Yes, and then we fail to see where that applies in this moment, because this moment too is being lived. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's
so let's talk about this moment before
that applies to everything, whether it's gender, race, religion. Like, you can't ignore the past. The past creates the present.
Yes.
And it creates all of our feelings, our subconscious feelings, subconscious reactions.
Yes.
There's, what's the term? Generational trauma. Like, do you believe in that?
Here we go again with generational trauma. Yes, I do believe in generational trauma.
Yeah. So,
but the point I'm making is that if we are not careful, some men are going to be living with generational trauma too. So instead of trading places, why can't we just meet in a place where there is no more generational trauma?
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
But the men
the
that
society
you feel...
we build shouldn't be about trading those places. It should be about, okay, now this is where it's reasonable and fair for everybody.
But if you look at the average man still, is the average man...
But you're not talking about... We're not talking about an average man. You're talking about your husband.
Okay, so you want to go back.
And his lived feelings in that moment.
In a moment.
In that moment. Because you know him as a sum of all of his experiences, right? And you are a sum of all your experiences.
I thought we're talking about general,
through all of that,
first of all.
Yeah, but through all of that madness, it's general. But again, for us to draw a general picture, we need to look at the microcosm.
But that's like, in a moment, what, you feel silenced? But in our relationship, do you feel silenced? No. So in a moment, you can feel silence.
You're right.
In a moment, I feel silenced. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the dynamic of any relationship. Is there's times there's miscommunications, and someone feels they're not being heard or they're not getting a chance to speak.
Yeah.
And you have a super strong reaction, like when that happens to you.
Exactly. But the reason why I don't feel silenced is because I have a very strong personality in standing up for myself. I was taught this as a very young child. I had to always stand up for myself. And I call it out from the moment that it happens, so that it does not become a pattern where I begin becoming resentful to the other person. I express how I feel in that moment, so that it doesn't become resentment, which is the most healthy way. It's communication, right? Because there are men out there.
Oh, that just keep it to themselves.
That just keep it to themselves, and then they just begin. It becomes a thing of, I hate my wife. I can't have fun with her. But for me and you, it should be. We should be able to do things together because we know what upsets the other person and what pleases them. So I know when to please you, and I know what's going to piss you off.
Do you?
Hopefully.
That's up for debate.
Man. Hopefully, but I hope I do. But I hope like that even in my experiences that
overall,
it even grows better.
Yeah, I think that you learn people over time, and I think overall we communicate well and read each other well, but we also know how to push each other's buttons.
But not intention. It's never intentional with me. If it's done, it's inadvertent.
Once we start going, it's sort of a little bit of a spawn off.
Yeah, but that's more like that's fencing.
That's intentional. That's like making moves.
Yeah, but then at the end of the day, it's not meant to hurt. It's vent. You're venting basically. And the beauty with us is that we've just had a 10-minute argument, heated argument, and here we are recording a podcast.
Yeah.
And trying to make sense even out of what's going on.
A heated argument of telling each other that their story or their idea
is boring and stupid. Exactly. We've just had that conversation. And I'm telling you, I don't like it when you tell me my topics are boring and stupid, because I've sat through so many boring and stupid conversations you've had as well. Even though I kept quiet through them and you couldn't keep quiet through them. So I had to stand up for myself, because in expressing that, some of the people enjoying my stupid and boring topics might find interest in what I'm saying. You get me? And in the same way, I don't want to silence you, because I don't. So I have to fight for that lane to remain.
Okay, fight on.
Clear. So again,
fight on, mighty. Okay. Altruistic warrior.
Okay. But yeah. But now that that's cleared, and I feel like the energy is back to where it should be now. Good. And we're having a great conversation.
Shake it.
We have arrived at, again, another very, very important topic.
Okay, what is that?
The topic where we are fighting for women's rights and what's historically been done that's unfair. The very unfortunate position some women still find themselves in because of the societies where they live and because of the attitude of some men, the unwillingness to change, and be feeling threatened that they are losing power.
See, and that's where I'd already start saying that you're saying some women, and I'd say all women face discrimination and inequality at different levels.
Okay, at different levels. Again, that's your experience.
Yeah.
That's your experience. But also in that very experience, which most of us men are getting educated about it every day, just like most racists are getting educated out of their racism, which sometimes they don't even know, but it's been there and they've been doing these discriminatory things. And it's a learning experience here. It's a give and take experience. But the most important thing is that the conversation is willing on both sides to see both sides of the argument, of the debate.
Yeah.
But then again, in recognizing that, I find that we've also arrived at a place in society, and I know so many people are going to argue with me. There are going to be some unkind
I already
comments.
know what you're going to say, and I'm already agitated by it. So go for it. Make this public and embarrass yourself.
See, that's the thing. We are even at a point right now where you can't even have a conversation about it. And the moment you shut off the conversation,
of being a man.
And the moment you can't have a conversation about anything, you've
about
arrived at a very unsafe
Okay, so let's talk about it.
Where it's going to be, now let me draw my territory, and now it's going to be them against us, instead of how do we build a better community for the men that are living,
so say what
and the
you're
women
trying to say,
and the children that are coming.
Some people aren't clear on what your stance is or your feeling.
Because I already know, you already told me what your reaction is going to be.
That's okay, but then we're going to talk about it and why I feel my way and you feel your way. But first, explain.
So a wise man wouldn't tread these waters, basically. But
only a brave soldier.
There's a thin line between bravery and stupidity too.
Yes, very true.
But I hope that this is a safe space where we can discuss some things.
Yeah.
And
or just edit.
Or maybe
or
I
we
can
just
be
do
educated.
some really good editing. You know, that's the worst case scenario.
Sometimes the editing is the editing robs us of.
We're not good. These are live and unedited.
I know. But sometimes it goes without saying that the editing might rob others of a very teachable moment. Like you might say something that might actually be an moment.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Or we might argue and get cancelled.
Yeah,
you get me. So I go into this knowing it's a very touchy subject, and that's the subject of, in defending women's rights, are we creating? Let me pose this as a question: in defending women's rights and protecting women and creating opportunities for girls
and equality, yes,
and equality, are we arriving into a world which is now beginning to muzzle anything masculine, and is it now taboo to be a man, and is it taboo to have an opinion? It's a question. So I would like to hear your.
First of all, what does it mean to be a man?
That's a
part
very
of the
good
issue.
start.
I think that society is trying to redefine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, what do you define being a man that's within the context of feeling like this idea of a man, but you're
toxic masculinity. It has a name now.
I know. But you're not even a toxic. Well, there's areas where we have to discuss it and we get into arguments about it, but like, because I don't, the stereotype of a toxic man shouldn't exist. Like someone who's super sexist and thinks women are lower. Like, I mean, who might be abusive, who might be like, there's a number of qualities, egotistic, power hungry, like what other, I don't know. When I think of like the toxic man, like those are the toxic behaviors.
In thinking about the toxic man, that's a misogynist who thinks people who don't share his gender are not as intelligent and not as strong, and most of the times most sexual crimes are created through that scope of looking at things. And also in also the toxic man is the one who breeds that culture.
Yes.
And finds it acceptable. He won't accept that to be applied to his daughters, but he thinks they live in this bubble and he can always protect them from that, while he's creating the environment where such behavior is propagated.
Given that you don't have those behaviors, like any of those, okay, in my experience, I don't know it when you hit the locker room. I don't know what that locker room talk sounds like. It's
I don't do locker rooms,
but but like, I think we can all agree that those are all bad things, and they should be removed from like standard societal behavior. So then the question is, what's the issue with removing those, and where does it become
a muzzle?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So you have a spectrum of, from my observation, my brief observation, might be even an ignorant observation, but I've seen a spectrum of women activists. There are women who want to arrive at a fair society, and I think which is the ideal way of arriving. How do we arrive at a society where it's equal opportunity for everything, equal pay, you don't tell me about my body, I don't tell you about your body, all of that is taken care of. But then again, there is the other side of, we need to castrate this. You get me?
Yeah, so I understand.
Which is kind of unfair, because I don't think there's anyone out there rooting for castrating people. It's this fear again that men have.
I mean,
but then there are some people that really, really hate the other side.
Yeah,
because it's a power thing again.
I agree.
And in order for that power dynamic to change, they believe they have to take power as well.
Well,
right?
So then there's toxic masculinity and toxic, I don't want to call it femininity, toxic.
I don't know. We need to be careful here, because we might get attacked. And
okay, but here's the question, because I would say neither of us both of us lie somewhere in the middle, towards the liberal spectrum of these, whatever, I don't even know what you call it.
I'd like to believe of this movement.
Yes.
So
the question then for me is, like, as people who are both kind of more in the middle to liberal, we still have like arguments all the time where we don't see eye to eye. So it's like, so as someone who's not like an asshole, like whatever, toxic male, and vice versa, like I'm not like, I hate men and they should all die, women can live without men, then why is there still so much tension between us on certain topics, like related to gender?
Yes, on certain topics related to gender is the reason which I think most of the arguments that we've been having and debates on this topic, like, is
cancel culture stuff.
It's not only cancel culture, because cancel culture can also be accountability culture.
Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah.
Being accountable for the things that you have done. But often, there is this proverb in Uganda which says, Tosala gwakawala, ngatona ulidiza gwakalenzi, which is basic. And I really look at ancient wisdom, like some of these proverbs, and they have a lot of depth in the way that they can inform where we are now. And this proverb basically translates to, do not just judge the case based on what the girl says. Give a boy a chance. Give a chance to listen to the boy.
We've talked about this one like 10 times.
I know. It sounds wrong, because when you look at it again, a very patriarchal society, if you listen to, don't only listen to the girl.
I cut you off. Say exactly what it says. It says, don't just listen to what
I'm loosely translating.
Yeah, it says,
it's like, don't just listen to
what the girl.
Don't just judge just because of what the girl has said.
Also give the boy a chance.
Give the boy a chance to defend himself.
And the new
way of looking at things is just believe the women, and we have arrived there. Because
I don't think we've arrived.
No, we have arrived because,
I don't think so.
Because we live in an area. Okay, the liberals have arrived. That's where the liberal movement is. And even being part of the liberals, I'm looking at this movement and I'm saying, men lie, women lie. So at the end of the day, we are at a place where so many courts have been ruled by men, right? And they have always ruled in favor of the men. So I understand that historically, the women have not been able to get justice from either sexual assault or being hard, period. You get me? So when you say believe women, it has come from a fight to it has taken several strides to get to this point where you should believe what the woman is saying, because it takes a lot of courage to come up and speak up for yourself.
In your opinion, society has gone so far and so extreme that the women are always believed. But look at
we are just arriving there. But I'm saying in that,
so that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Yes,
because
but
we're certainly not.
We're not there yet. But I'm just saying that in arriving there, can we arrive there
without hurting men,
without muzzling the boys? Like, can someone
saying don't speak up for yourself if you're being accused of something?
If you're being accused, don't even speak about yourself. We're believing the woman. And everybody is going to just believe the woman, because right now the slogan is believe the woman. And yes, we should listen to the women, but men lie, women lie too. We all know that. It's a fact of life.
Right. But then where we always get into with this conversation is that statistically, women underreport and statistically they don't false report. Like, it does happen. So the chances statistically of a woman lying in these instances versus a man lying, because the men are the perpetrators in these cases, based on statistics, means that we need to lean towards the woman to be extra cautious to make sure she gets heard, gets a chance to be heard, because it's highly unlikely that she's lying.
Highly unlikely that she's lying, and that's what it is most of the cases.
Yeah, so we always get to this thing where I'm like, I don't care if a few good men go down because of this, because so many good women have gone down for decades and millenniums. So you want
sacrifice a few.
Yes,
to
you want this world where
goal.
You want somehow to come to a solution where we meet in the happy medium, and I think you have to go to the extreme and go what you would consider too far in order to then scale back and get to where you want to be.
Yeah, so maybe I'm just expressing some of my fears because we've never been here before. I don't think in human history that we've ever been here before. Right? Like,
yeah, but this is exactly the point. Like,
this
this is the same, and I always make the comparison with you to also race, because there's so many parallels.
Yes.
Where you look at police violence, and like a black person's more likely, like the racial profiling or what's going to happen to a black person that goes into the court system. So it's like the opposite argument would be, no, you shouldn't be giving black people a benefit of the doubt. Like, we're equal.
Believe the police.
Right. That's basically what you're saying.
No. What I'm saying is that it might get to believe the police, because when you're dealing with extremes, right? Let me explain it better. So historically, it's always been, the black people are the criminals, and the police who is the right person keeping the criminals in check.
Yes.
And criminals in quotes meant black people because of the way they set up the system that we are trying to dismantle with Black Lives Matter and all these other movements. So the extreme of the community is always believe the police because they are honest, right? But we know that even among the police...
But again,
let me finish my point. Statistically, most policemen are trying to do good, right? And there are few who are rotten apples. You get the argument?
That's the argument.
Let me finish the argument, because this is a fictional world we're getting in. We're doing the parallels and seeing how this argument is going to go. So if all the police are good and they're only a bad apples that are causing all of this mayhem, right? Then we live in a society like America, which says, oh yeah, he did something to the police. Definitely, the police is right. Believe the police, right? That's the society we have been living in. Now, that's the society that has been extreme in their racism, that it's entrenched in their police, that's how they run the society and have been running the society for the hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So if we deal with this other extreme and we let that extreme go, we have never been here before. If that extreme runs the way that it is running and the community runs the affairs between these two sexes the same way, don't you think there's a danger we might arrive at a place where it's believe the women to a point where, even if there are some women who lie, they're just the bad apples of the good women.
But right now it's the men
I
being
know,
the bad apples
but
and
then
the police being a few bad apples. But we see that the victims in these scenarios are usually the minority person, the woman or the person of color.
No, I'm trying to flip the picture. Yes, that's true.
Right.
It's the person of color who's getting affected in the community where it's believed the police, right? So in the community where it's believed the women, if we keep on going like this for the next 50 years, do you think in the future we're going to arrive to a place where, those are just the few liars that we have, believe the women, where now it becomes, it's only those bad apples that are affecting the men. Well,
here's the question.
But
here's my question, G.
Fair.
Would we get to a place where we believe the women and they start lying, or would we get to a magical place where men
everybody lies? That's what we just said.
Right. That's why that's bullshit. But I'm saying, will we get to that magical place, or what I would hope is going to happen is we get to a place where men stop perpetrating so many crimes because they see that there's accountability.
Sorry, I apologize. I think we're talking over each other, and I lost your point. So you were saying, will we get to a point where...
if you keep pushing that believe women, you're saying then the men are never going to get heard and we'll always believe them, and they could be lying and they could be a bad apple woman. Yes?
Yes.
But I'm saying the other thing that could happen is if you keep pushing the believe women movement is that men stop committing so many crimes against women because they know there's accountability. So I think that
we've arrived at a very, very, very nice, other very good point. You get me? Like
the same thing that if you're saying that some good policemen are being taken down in this or being disrespected or whatever, but
then again, it's the whole organization. Why aren't they calling out the bad ones, right?
Yes, and that's why I'm saying if the system is trying to create more accountability, more body cams, different rules about how you arrest, the physicalities of arresting someone to create more safety and accountability. Because again, is it going to become, we never believe any police, or is it going to become the fucked up police aren't going to do the fucked up stuff because they're going to get caught?
What I'm saying, the argument which I was trying to advance between these two parallels is like, why do we again create, if we think that this system does not work, where we broad brush everything and we just say no nuances in this argument or in this debate, let's just create a block where you just have to believe every woman. Why that again, if we're saying, if it has been believe the police, which has been imperfect, and you're seeing the amount of work that the black community has to go through to dismantle a system like that. Why are we again creating another system which is going to take people hundreds of years to again try to dismantle? Why can't we just arrive to a society where the nuance matters because everyone's justice matters and everybody's fairness matters? Let's create the laws. Let's create more, let's nominate more female judges. Why don't we just repair the whole system instead of dealing with...
I think that would be amazing.
Block hashtags.
I would love if society could move that way, but I think we've seen historically that it's extreme social changes, extreme social movements that create paradigm shift. So that's, to me, that even reminds me of, I can't remember, I think there's different like racist politicians during civil rights movement who are saying, why can't you just like slow down? You're asking for too much. You're moving too fast. Be patient. Like all this shit. And it's like, if that was how the movement ran, it would have gotten nowhere.
I see.
So things you have to push beyond the reality you
because the system you're trying to dismantle is so
powerful.
You need to be extremely
you have to be extremist to even for people to even recognize what the middle is and where is reasonable.
So you have to be unreasonable in order to arrive at reason.
I think so.
It's physics, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, especially now, like, when you think about what attracts people's attentions, like, I know this, we can look back and we know throughout history this is the case, but I'm even thinking now, like, what's going to grab someone's attention or like, what do they call it? Viral news or things that are like, you know, like, if it's not viral, then how are you even going to get people to notice it and talk about it and then absorb that cultural change?
I know. Then again, we don't have all the answers, and often when we have this debate, it comes out of I'm wondering if I ever have a son, right?
Yeah.
And I have a daughter. I want both of them to live in a life and a world which is going to be fair to both of them. That's what I want, basically.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't purport to have all the answers, but that's how I feel. Because I feel like even in fighting for justice, we shouldn't become the monsters ourselves. We need to remind ourselves of that always. And that in this thing called power, it shouldn't be a thing of let me just take power just for the sake of taking power and keeping it for my sake. But how do we make it all equitable? You get me?
Yeah, and we don't know. Society has never been
so far. Nobody has arrived at that, except at that. So if society has never been equitable,
or let's say a global society has never been equitable, I'm sure there's many ancient civilizations that were set up in equitable fashions, but they were small communities, and it was different.
Is that a real idea, or do we just fantasize about it as liberals? That there was an egalitarian, you know, like in Atlantis,
I thought you've given me some example of some like tribe where you're telling me like the way it's set up.
Yeah.
Like they. No, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. I was telling you about. So Buganda, again, my tribe is very patriarchal, right? But it's almost as if that. That patriarchal power, without bringing in education and all these other ways, the education that came from like the colonizers, basically, it seemed as if it was a patriarchal society, but actually that was the illusion for who really held the power in the kingdom. Because in most cases, you found that the queen's mother wielded so much power to the extent that she ran the kingdom.
Behind the scenes or officially?
Basically, if you wanted to see the king, you had to go through her. Her and the catechumen, they had to approve who works at the palace, who does da. If you wanted to borrow money, yes, the husband owns all the cattle, all the land.
Okay.
But again, the approval has to come from the woman, the head woman. So it had its imperfections as well, where a man again married as many wives as he wanted, and women still were, there was dowry. You get me, like exchange. I'm giving you my daughter. You're giving me this much. But even though that sounds wrong, it also had its own safeguards in a way that.
As we call checks and balances. Checks
and balances. Like, for example, I'm giving you my daughter doesn't mean that you're taking her forever and I can't get her back. I have to get an auntie on your side. I have to send the brother to the girl. I have to have an uncle who checks on them. I have to have an auntie. So it's like a very communal thing. So if you only look at it from like a Western lens, it's like very unfair. But when you dive into how that system actually worked, you find that actually women had a lot of power.
But then again, when you were saying before, is this a fantasy of how things were or reality? So we talk about traditions and how things were supposed to operate, but given that we didn't live in these times, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know how it felt on the ground for, your average woman or
Yeah,
man.
like the king takes the mother's side of the clan. That's power. But then again, we don't know how she was treated.
Right.
Probably by the husband or whatever. So we don't know. But I hope we will arrive at a more equitable society. But I hope we arrive there with everybody happy. You get me? Just like Black Lives Matter all the way. You get me? But I just don't want that to come at a cost where I could never sit on the same table with a Mexican man, white man, Chinese man, and have a conversation. Because in Luther's dream, I love that speech. You need to arrive to a place where all of you look at each other as humans with equal footing and ownership of the community. That's the utopia we are trying to build. How do we get there? Nobody has succeeded yet. Yeah, America is still an experiment in that. Yeah, failing miserably and also doing so many beautiful strides.
Some of the things you've said too make me think about like growing up. When I thought about having kids, I was like, having a girl is scary. You have to be protecting them. Like, I don't want certain things to happen or that I've been through that are so terrible. Now being in an interracial relationship, I look at it and I'm like, it's even worse for the boys perceived most likely by society as Black or a person of color. And it's like, they're even more at risk. So it's like you have the female and you have the male of color. And so both, it's like both people have societies stacked up against them. So that's why both of those categories need the extra benefit of the doubt.
So either way, you're fucked like the Kama Sutra.
All directions,
all directions. But you make a very nice observation.
I mean, this is just depressing and
full disclosure.
difficult.
Full disclosure, though, I've always wanted. It's strange. I've always wanted a daughter first.
Same.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, because I'll relate to the girl more.
Most African men, everybody
want a boy.
Everybody wants a boy, but I've always wanted a daughter first.
Yeah.
And I'll make her so badass. She's gonna be daddy's girl, but tough as nails. Now, I mean, sweet as candy too. But definitely. I've enjoyed this discussion. I can't wait for the comments in the the comments, whatever the comments in the comment section. I want to know how you feel. I want to know
how do you create equality?
How do we create
casualties?
Equality without casual? Thank you so much. That's it.
That doesn't exist.
Equality without casualties.
That's like a social movement without casualties.
Can you ever have peace without war? You need to have war to have peace. I feel like some of these things are even just said because I think about so many statements that are made that are part of how society applies itself, that this shit can be dismantled too. We can call bullshit on that too.
I wish.
You can have peace without war. Can't you? Really? Can't it be more understanding without going to war?
Talk to the people in power, because they look for every reason to create war scenarios or that's the same thing to me of why do what's the big deal about being the number one country or the biggest economy or the most powerful army in the world? It's just take care of your people. And
so when you arrive to a place where materialism does not really hold that much value and everybody comes to that realization and consciousness, don't you think?
But instead we're heading towards increased materialism. Increased capitalism.
So it seems.
So
we'll
see if this changes in our lifetime.
I have so much faith in the Gen Zs though.
The TikTokers.
The ones I have so much faith, but I think it's funny that we begin to speak like this as millennials, because I think that's how our
Yeah.
Our fathers and grandfathers were hoping that we would change some things. And don't get me wrong, there's so many things that have been changed. You get me? But there's still so much change that's
there's
desired
change
in the world.
And there's improvement, and I don't know, there's different, but yeah.
But in order to have change, you need to have improvement, right? You hope that the improvement is not
in some places
in some areas, you know,
regressions. We've seen that in the States in the last few years. But it again, what is it? Some steps forward, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, whatever. That's.
I was watching a very interesting interview of Elon Musk. And
you said I haven't seen it.
And he made a very important point. He said they were telling him about, you know, like, you go to space and use this much money and without solving the problems on Earth. It was in that context of that question, but then it also talked about how the US was able to send somebody to the moon with that technology, and because the whole country rallied behind, we have to put a man on the moon. It was the competition with, I think, Russia, but also the desire for man and the scientists and everybody to put a man on the moon. It's exciting. You want to see what's up there. But he said that technology has regressed so much that until he made a rocket that is reusable, a reusable rocket, they would have still spent like billions of dollars trying to construct a rocket which is going to get destroyed. There was no advance in that technology until another man took interest in that and began looking at the problem in so many ways. And in that argument, he said, I mean, technology regresses too. And he said, you look at the Egyptians, they built the pyramids, but they forgot how they don't know how to build pyramids anymore. They somehow forgot. So I think with these other social movements too, I think the fire just has to keep on burning, and you hope that it's heading in a direction where there is improvement and not regressing.
Let us hope.
Yeah, let us hope. Yes. Well, let's wait for you in the comment section. Once again, it's your boy GNL Zamba and
I'm Miriam Tamar.
Together we are
We're Nsimbi.
Peace and love.